back. This is my Patreon live stream week 37. You know what it is. And March 3rd, man. Let's get it. Hello to DJ. Hello to my boy Mikhail. My girl Anna, man. How you doing? 5 people. Write me questions in the chat. You know what it is. Got a lot to talk about, man. So let's get straight to it. Oh boy, I got some titties in here, man. Let me close that shit. Let me close that. I don't want YouTube to ban me for no titties, damn. Alright. First person we got, as always, Anna, because, you know, it's the fucking A. I just do it in the, you know, with the number shit. So, Anna sent me some of her work. It's mostly traditional because she said that she actually broke her stylus or something. And I was like, damn, that's bad luck, you know, but pencils are free. So, you know, what are you gonna do? So she did a couple of traditional drawings, and then she did also this kind of coloring in digital, which I really like a lot. I love when people kind of color some traditional drawings. Let's start out with that critique. Oh, and by the way, man, look at that fucking signature, man. Let me congratulate Anna for the amazing goddamn signature. All right, I think she found like the perfect shit. Like, it's not, you know, like right below each other like mine, but it's right next to each other. And the, oh my god, the font and everything, perfect. I don't know why I'm so fascinated by signatures, because it shows style, you know, it shows some personality, you know. I love that shit. So what I was gonna say about this pose, Anna, is every time you draw kind of like a figure in the front view, I feel like you can kind of work with the shoulders, because whenever you draw a figure standing right in front of you, it just kind of looks dead, you know, if you don't really work with the shoulders. My new drawing that I just did today, still haven't posted it on Instagram. I feel, oh my god, I just realized how big the head is. That head needs to be smaller, Jesus. Yeah, but so see what I did with the shoulders? It's really subtle, but it's kind of like there's this thing where one shoulder is like below the other one, and maybe she's doing something with her hands. And I feel like that can definitely, I feel like you kind of did that a little bit, but you know, you can definitely push it a lot more. And then the titties will definitely be lower. Like, you draw them titties up on her shoulders. So the anatomy of the figure is gonna be like, she's gonna have the neck, right? The neck, then the clavicles, and then there's gonna be the shoulders on the side, and then next to the shoulders you're gonna have the armpit. So the titties are really gonna start from the armpit, so they're gonna be below, way below the armpit and below the shoulders. The way that you draw them, the nipple is right up the shoulder. So definitely those titties need to kind of go down. I would also advise you to maybe work on that waist to make it kind of smaller. You know, people, why do you always gotta make the waist so small? Because, bitch, it looks better. It looks better. You can't say that it doesn't. All right. So definitely. Oh, how you doing, my boy Kalini, man? How you doing? I haven't seen any work from you, but I hope you got a good excuse though. Shit. So yeah, definitely work on, you know, those proportions. And look at that. I feel like that's okay. That's actually kind of bad because the face is way too long. But just a lot more space into the torso, and definitely try working with you know, that shit that I said with the shoulder. Always maybe have one arm raised or something. Like, never just draw 2 arms sitting by the side, because it always looks like a zombie or something, you know. Like, bring in something more interesting. And then I also wanted to mention, when you draw the shoulders, like connecting to the clavicles, so when you have the neck, right, you have the clavicles going in like this. So it's really important to draw the trapezius muscle, like a lot of people, and then the shoulders are going to be right next to it. Let me show you on my drawing. He said, no good excuse, I just couldn't, wait, what? I couldn't get any good line work done. Oh, it's good, buddy, as long as you try. And by the way, don't feel obliged for people sending you your work. Don't feel obliged like it needs to be like the best work. Like, you can still send me something bad. I mean, I'm gonna, you know, roast the fuck out of you, but, you know, you can still send me some bad work, man. I just want to do critiques, man. I want to help you. So if you still haven't sent me your work, angelganef6@gmail.com. So what I was gonna say is that what I feel like a lot of people miss is this trapezius muscle right here. So a lot of people just draw the neck, and then draw the shoulders, you know, connecting like this. And what you have to do is actually draw the clavicles first of all, because that's going to be the bones that, you know, connect the shoulders to the neck. And then you also have the trapezius in the back, right? And the trapezius, especially for women, it's not going to be straight like this, but it's actually going to be with a little bit of a curve. And people do a lot of mistakes. Sometimes they make the trapezius way up to the shoulders, making it like a bodybuilder or something. But really, it's gonna be halfway into the neck and halfway into the shoulders. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna kind of create like this little triangle in there. But really, it's just a lot of, you know, studying from references. I would advise you to just find some, you know, some interesting references and just study. So that's what I wanted to mention for this one. Kind of be mindful of the proportions. Good colors. Oh, and also for the glow, it's cool when you try to do the glow, but don't do so many. Don't do much. Don't do so much soft shit like right next to the glow. What I advise you to do is actually keep it more simple. So instead of doing it with soft brushes, just do it with a hard brush and add a little bit of a color dodge. So see how, I don't know, I feel like that looks a lot better than before, because before it's just too much, you know, she looks like a piece of candy. You know, it's better for you to make the outline kind of glowy and then to just keep a straight edge. You know, don't make it way too soft, because it kind of looks kind of amateurish. Hey, my boy Cole, man, how you doing? How you doing, man? So good to see you guys, man. So other than that, she did a couple of traditional works, Anna, and I just kind of wanted to mention really quickly about shading with traditional. So pretty much what happens is, people know from shading kind of like from school and shit, and over there they teach you kind of like this shading technique where you just go, I'm gonna be doing, because that's kind of like a big subject, I'm gonna be doing a YouTube tutorial about shading traditionally. But pretty much what happens is, in school they would tell you just to shade like this and then shade like this, and then just keep making these fucking bars like goddamn hashtags, and then just keep going until it becomes darker. But the problem with that is that it just kind of looks, I don't know, for me it just kind of looks amateurish, like all these lines, like there's way too much space between these lines. So what I kind of do is I still do the cross hatching, but I make sure that I do it with a lot less space between it, right? So if you see the way that I shade, for example, the skin, it's still gonna be with hatching, but it's gonna be a lot closer to each other, you know, and it's gonna be a lot softer. So I'm way more thinking about the form, and I'm more thinking about the core shadows. I feel like some people, when they're shading traditionally, they're just shading for the sake of shading. Like, I just want to have all of the shading, like I'm just gonna have shading everywhere. I feel like it's more important for you to know exactly where to add the shading and think about the planes. And Anna is kind of doing that, you know, not to roast her too much. She's doing it kind of alright. But I just advise you to be more specific with your shading, and try to don't be so harsh about it, because it just, I don't know, it looks kind of not professional, like it's just way too rough. And also another advice that I can give you is, I shade differently different types of fabric. So for example, you can kind of see how, oh my god, I can't get over that big ass head. Thank god I saw that. Her head is so goddamn big. But for example, when I'm doing the shading of the hair, see how there's gonna be a lot more cross hatching going this way and that way. And then for example, when it comes to the skin, it's gonna be a lot softer, it's gonna be a lot lighter, and it's gonna be a lot closer, like less cross hatching. And then for example, when it comes to the clothes, it's gonna be a lot more straight, and you're actually gonna see more of those lines, and that kind of makes you believe that this is a different fabric than the skin. You know, it just doesn't look the same way. And you know, I'm not really good with that. I'm not really that good with traditional. Like, I'm not saying I'm really like a master or anything, but I'll just advise you to be more conscious of whatever you're shading. Like, don't just shade everything the same way. You know, really think about this shit, and be aware of where those core shadows are, and don't just shade it for the sake of it. Alright, I hope that fucking helps. Mikael says the head looks alright to me. Well, Oh, you like big heads, huh? You like big heads. I got one of them. I don't got two big heads, but I definitely got one. All right, next up we got Bailey. I'm so happy Bailey actually sent me her work, because I don't think she sent any in the past couple of weeks. And she sent also a question. In the beginning, I was having a really hard time with this exercise, to be honest. It's completely okay, man. If you have never really done the lay-ins and shit, you're always gonna be hard. It was taking me multiple hours to finish one. Wow, multiple hours though? That's crazy. I found the hardest part was fitting the sphere into the cube. I'm still having a hard time doing the freehand versions too. I usually end up having to redo that version multiple times. I was wondering if it's better to do this exercise quickly and move on to another portrait, or take your time with each portrait. That's a great fucking question. So actually, what I think about the lay-ins is it really depends on where your drawing skill is in general. So I kind of got a lot of people who start doing the exercise and they already have a lot of experience with drawing in general, and they kind of get it really fast. But I feel like for Bailey, who else? I don't remember who else. Oh, kind of Sam as well. For Samantha, like it looks good, right? Like it has the right proportions. It even kind of feels a little bit structural. But that's the thing, you don't really have a lot of experience with just drawing in general. So that's why you take a lot of time to really figure out these basic shapes, and that's the whole reason for this exercise, is for you to really think about basic shapes rather than thinking about complicated things like eyes. And because imagine if you can't even fit a small circle into a cube, you're gonna have a really hard time drawing a ear. So that's why you're gonna draw a representation of a ear. So that's why you need to be focusing on these basic stuff. But to answer your question, what I feel like you should start doing is keep doing these studies, kind of like spending more time, because you can really, because that's the thing though, right? So people do two types of mistakes. They either fucking perfect the exercise and they never really get that good because they're way too focused on being perfect, and then other people are way too fucking chaotic and they never really really understand like the perfectness of all the shapes, right? So what I feel like you should be doing, especially if you don't really have that much experience drawing, is focus on doing this as perfect as possible, maybe like a couple a week, and then the other time do quick sketches. So I feel like you should be doing both, and that's for, you know, somebody who hasn't really developed that skill. So I wrote here for Sam as well, but I think Bailey can try that as well. Is just try doing some 5-minute head sketches. So just get some references and just try to draw this exercise in 5 minutes and get just a timer. So just time yourself 5 minutes and just draw it as you know, as fast as possible. But then make sure that, you know, you also do these perfect sketches, because if you only do the rough ones, you know, you're not really gonna progress. But if you only do the perfect ones, it's gonna take forever. So I feel like a good mixture of that would kind of fit you. And I kind of wish I thought about this earlier. You know, I used to do like I watched a lot of tutorials. I totally recommend you watch them as well, called the Wax Atelier. I was even like paying for their online program. Really good. Oh shit, I guess it's not like this. Wax Atelier. So if you check them on YouTube, they have a lot of free videos. They explain a lot about form and stuff. So the guy who kind of teaches the drawing part explains how you should be doing different type of studies. So you have a study that's like 5 minutes, you have one that's 30 minutes, you have one that's like 3 hours, right? So I feel like for every one of these, let's say, you know, this takes you like 2 hours. Where did it go? Let's say this takes you 2 hours for Samantha and for Bailey as well. This takes you 2 hours. For any one of these, I feel like you should be doing like at least like 10 small sketches, you know, like 5-minute sketches. And that way you can kind of really test yourself whether your quote unquote perfect ones are getting better. And then you can also kind of check your chaotic ones, but really keep them different though. Like don't think about them as just one thing. Like even though it's one exercise, it's different time, you know, time measurement. So it's gonna look a different way. So don't judge yourself too hard. But anyway, I feel like that will kind of help you if you really don't have that experience with drawing that much. All right, next up we have Cole, my boy Cole. He sent the question. He's been doing some shading. Really proud of him. I think he's actually in the chat. He says, I'm sorry I'm coming up so short this week. We had some big changes at work, and in addition I had some commissions to catch up on. That's good, you're making money. That means you can pay me as well. Things should settle down for a while now. Okay, to summarize this week, I've started blending these planes out more. Questions this week. How the hell did you get so sexy? Oh baby, I said this before, it's all the genes. It's all about the lesbian genes. So if you have a kid, definitely pump out some lesbian genes. Could you take a look at the planes on code 26 and tell me if I got close with them? I had a fair amount of trouble placing them, but I thought I was close. He's talking about this piece. And yes, you actually got them pretty close, but let's talk about how you can really improve them. So of course, people have a lot of trouble with just kind of like the cheekbones in general. And it's actually a really great reference. It's really a great angle. I really like the reference. So basically what's happening, and you got it pretty right, is that the cheekbone is going to be right here, right? So the only thing you kind of got wrong is that it should be going a little bit more to the top, right? It should be a little bit more like this. And then another thing that I feel like you can improve is that the triangle is going to be a little bit bigger. You know, it's going to be kind of like this. So you did it kind of right in the shading, but I feel like with the sketching stuff, it really kind of practice your mind to realize this rather than just shade whatever you're looking at. And by the way, it's so weird because if you look at his painting, I feel like he did a lot better on this part, which is a lot more apparent, and then this part, which you can't really tell from the reference, he did kind of messy, you know. And that's a great example of exactly why you should be studying these sort of things, because when you understand it, you know, if you're using a great reference and you really understand it, you can paint it really a lot better. And then when you don't really understand it that much, or the reference is bad, you just end up making this, which is just like a big mess with brushes, right? So definitely advice I can give you about the cheekbones is really just think about the triangle, especially in this one, as continuing a little bit more further into the face. So it's really gonna be like, if you look at it, like you see these muscles going this way, really the bone is gonna be this thing in the red. Actually, let me get another color. This thing in the blue, right? So that's gonna be bone. And then right here with the purple, actually let me get a completely different color. This one with the green is gonna be a totally different plane, kind of how you did it. And obviously on the other side it's gonna be kind of the same. Like you have the cheekbone below, and then on top with green you have another plane. So even though you don't really see that much in the reference, if you paint it that way, it's gonna look a lot better than just combining these two planes, because they're actually completely different, right? So actually, let me show you how to blend this to actually make it look more like a triangle, and just think about this as one plane, and then think about the top as a completely different plane, right? And then kind of exaggerate this circle even more on this one, and just be more sure of those planes, you know. Like for example, really draw the form and really think about those edges. Like for example, you're gonna have more of a hard edge on this side, hard edge on here, but then a really soft edge connecting away. So a really hard edge on here, hard edge on this side, but then a soft edge going from here to here, right? So you really analyze this stuff and you just copy it, you know. Soft edge on this side, hard edge on this side, hard edge on this side, and the same with the other side. Even though it's not really that apparent, we're gonna have a hard edge on here, hard edge on here, and kind of like a softer edge on here. So see that makes a lot more sense when you look at that cheekbone, because it's a lot more structural rather than this pure shading. So that's gonna be for the cheekbones. And what I can kind of, oh, by the way, his nose kind of looks like he's broken or something. I feel like that nose can be, you know, going more like this way. So definitely pay attention to the straightness of the nose. So what I can kind of advise you for Cole, let me kind of look at your other work, is you did a lot better on this one, but I feel like you should just practice more with extreme references like this, I don't feel like you're really that ready for the highlights yet. So maybe stay away from them a little bit, because I feel like right now you rely on them too much and you just get caught up. Like, for example, the problem is when you don't really understand how to shade shadows and then you also add highlights, you just end up with this kind of messiness, you know, because you don't really understand how to blend shadows and like middle tones, and then you add the highlights. Like, I think I showed you that in the last live stream, how adding highlights to somebody who actually understands. Oh, by the way, did you copy that like this part right here with the eyebrow? That's way too realistic. How did you do that? Anyway, I got distracted. So my point was, highlights can really make or break a painting. So if you don't really understand how to really blend those shadows, you're just not making it better with the highlights. I actually wanted to show you something that I'm really happy with, and I'm gonna talk about it really soon. Esther, man, she's totally killing it. Look at that work by Esther. I think this is only like her 5th or 6th shading, and she's already doing amazing. So she's not really wasting time with highlights, and you can see how just purely with shadows you can really show all of the form. And now if you just take that work and you just add highlights on top, it's gonna look way better, right? Because you already have all of that form, so now all of that missing is just the juicy highlights, you know. But when you add the highlights to something that's not really that aesthetic in the shadows. Oh, he said he didn't copy the eye. Well, fucking congratulations then. Look at that eye. God damn, it's so close in texture. Yeah. So yeah, man, just I feel like you should stay away from highlights a little bit and really learn how to make those transitions. You know, again, showing Esther as an example, like, I'm really proud of her work. So think more about, you know, the shadows and the planes and how you can really play around with those. Let me talk really quick about the bearded guy in here, because I feel like the cheekbones are kind of slightly off. So the cheekbone is gonna be more like this, so it's not gonna have this shape, but it's gonna have more like a straight shape, right? And then well, like, every time you have, like, that's why we're really learning about the triangle, so you can kind of apply it to the shading. So see how if you just make it like this, it just looks kind of boring. Like, it just looks boring for you to just draw the cheekbone like this, because it's just like his face just looks like an end of a shoe, right? So what I feel like you can do is just add a little bit of that triangle and just make it soft on one side, and then just kind of blend it in with an eraser, and I feel like it immediately brings more structure. So you don't really see it in the reference, but that's why we're learning this stuff, so you can really play around with your understanding, and then also make it darker for the cheekbone. So like that part, like, you see how over here it's actually kind of darker than the other shadow. So that's really what I'm thinking about. Like, I'm just applying the knowledge that we're learning here, I'm just applying it to this. Like, I'm just making this darker, and then I'm including kind of like the triangle. But see how I'm not, like, that's one thing I feel like people don't really understand. Like, I'm not just shading like a triangle that looks like a scar. Like, I just think about it really gently, you know. It's just kind of showing some affection to the painting. It's not about you just drawing a goddamn triangle, you know what I'm saying? So just try to play around with those, and look at that. I feel like it just completely adds a lot more structure to that cheek now. Like he really, like, you can feel the structure now. Before, it just looked like something was kind of missing, you know what I'm saying? So I hope that helps, man. Just keep going. I swear your work is gonna get better. It already is better, but, you know, just really think about displaying shit in that structure. But you're doing great, buddy. I hope that helps. All right, next up, let me drink some water. Next up, we got DJ. DJ has been doing better with the proportions. You know, his work kind of looks like the person. I like that. But something that I don't understand, and I keep repeating it every goddamn week. Cole says, I spent an extra hour on the female this week. Do you think it's worth my time? Oh, that's a good question. Oh, I didn't finish the email. I'm sorry, my boy Cole. I'm sorry. Let's get back to Cole's question. Yeah, I totally forgot. the first document, the female, I spent an extra hour. Yeah, do you think that's worth it? The other two were routine. Looking forward to your feedback. Oh, thank you, buddy. I'm looking forward to your work too. Shit. So this is kind of the female that he did. Yeah, I feel like it's worth your time, but definitely kind of keep it to a minimum. Like maybe if you do like 2 males, you can kind of do 1 female. But again, the problem is that you don't really feel like that same structure into the female. Like if you just add that triangle in here with a female, it's gonna look really weird. Like she's not supposed to have this triangle and all this form and shit. So really the way that like we're really trying to learn the structure of the cheekbone. So if you're using females, you're just gonna make them a lot more manly. And I feel like the more you add planes into a female face, the uglier you kind of make her. So the thing about pretty female faces is that they barely have any planes. Like that's why it's even harder and it's even prettier, because it's a lot, like it's weird because it looks a lot simpler, but it's actually a lot more complicated. So with the females, you really need to be a lot more efficient and show a lot more with a lot less. So the way that I paint this portrait is actually completely remove this kind of plane in here, just because it's kind of making her old. And even looking that, like even with that, look at how much like more beautiful and younger she looks. And then I'll completely remove this whole like cheek area, and what I'll probably do is just add like just a simple brush stroke, and then just kind of blend it in and make like a really hard edge on this side. But again, that's only because I've painted, and then completely remove any planes in here, and just completely soften it out. And look at how much better that looks. Like just simplifying shit. Like there was way too much, I removed it, it looks better. But the problem is that's only because I've painted for so long that I know how to make it kind of beautiful and right with a lot less. But guess what, you don't really know that when you first start out, you know. So you can kind of just, you know, do the women for the fun of it, but don't expect, oh by the way, she looks completely fucking bald in here. You make her look like an old Japanese guy, man. You gotta draw more hair. Jesus, she looks bald as hell. She looks like me. So yeah, if you really want to learn the structure, I advise you to kind of focus on some males. I feel like you're really close. Like for example, for Esther, I feel like she'd be alright with painting some females because she's really getting the hand of that structure. But for you, I feel like there's a little bit more, but you know, I can't really stop you. You know, it doesn't really hurt for you to do like 1 female every once in a while, but just make sure that in the beginning it's mostly males, you know what I'm saying? But it's more of a personal choice. Alright, next up, DJ. I was gonna say, for DJ, man, I'm happy your proportions are getting better, but something that really fucking bothers me, and I keep repeating it, I don't know why you wouldn't do it. He keeps fucking up the shape of the cheekbone. So you clearly have the motherfucking planes of the head here. So we keep talking about how the bigger plane is kind of this shape, and then the triangle is kind of like this shape. Why do you have this weird ass shape? Like that's, how is this a triangle? How is this a fucking triangle? This looks like a fucking knife, or I don't even know what it looks like. It looks like an end of a shark. It just doesn't look like a triangle. Okay, buddy, I will try and do these things. I'm glad, buddy. Keep going. I love that word, buddy. Keep going, buddy. So yeah, for DJ, man, I want you to follow more. Like you did it pretty good in here, even though the triangle is still not. Let me show you how I do it. So I'd have more like this, and then the triangle is kind of like this, right? It's really simple. Like why did you have this small ass square and then this big ass triangle? Like it just doesn't make sense. Like I feel like you're just pulling these shapes out of your ass. Like it's just not like what you're seeing in the reference. So that's gonna be the first thing. And then DJ also sent a video which is actually really helpful. I would advise. Oh shit, did I close it? Ah shit, I think I did. Alright, let me find the video in my email. So DJ sent me a video of him kind of like doing the shading, and I think that's a great thing for you to do, because I can really see your mistakes and kind of like what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right. So let me open it real fast. Yeah, here it is. So He started out with the line art, and then he kind of does the local color, separates the hair, and it's all good. But one thing, DJ, that I feel like you're kind of overdoing is really your work with the lasso tool. So the lasso tool is really more about edges. So the lasso tool really comes in handy if you know, for example, you want to kind of draw the, like you're into the shading already, and you're just kind of doing the cheekbones or something, and you just kind of want to bring in an edge. When you're first starting out with the basic shading, I would just advise you to focus with a brick and an eraser, right? And one thing, actually, that's probably one of the most important things, is stop zooming in. So I don't want anybody to zoom in, especially in these exercises, because the problem is, DJ says, told you I'm on that YouTube stuff. Okay, it's good that you're making videos, boy. But one thing, stop zooming in. Like, it doesn't make sense for you to not even have any detail, and you're just zooming in so you can get the plane of the eye. Like, it doesn't help you at all. It actually makes you focus on the small details, and like you like, it fucks up with your mind. Like, never zoom in and then just make your brush bigger. Like, your brush is way too small. Like, see how you just do this? Like, I talk about how to make your brush, just make it as big as the plane that you're trying to shade, and then just shade it with one go, and then just get the eraser and just kind of get that shape, you know what I'm saying? So for example, the head, kind of like what you did, like you went over and over with a brush, and then you did it with the lasso tool over and over again. So what I do for this hair, I might use the lasso just for this edge, like for something like a circle or something. Then I make a really big brush stroke, then I get an eraser, but see how big it is? I don't zoom in, I don't do nothing. So I just kind of clean up that edge. So that saves you a lot of time. And then if I want to darken something, I might use the lasso tool and then just kind of like use a bigger brush. But don't use a brush that's actually like this small, and never do this shit. So never get your brush and then just kind of start going like that, like a kindergarten kid. Like, when you're using the brush, actually imagine you're using a real brush, so you're getting it, and like, imagine if you were painting. I don't really have that much experience with traditional painting, but it would be super stupid for you to pick up a real brush and start going like this. Like, nobody paints like this. Like, if you look at traditional painters, they always pick up their brush and they just do that, right? So they just make up, for example, the lasso tool in here, and then just make up a brush stroke, and then that was a horrible brush stroke, but make up a brush stroke, then another brush stroke, you know what I'm saying? So it's all about you just using bigger brushes and really thinking about those planes. It's gonna be really confusing in the beginning, I know, and I don't know why you did, like, what is this plane supposed to be, like this little ass plane in here? So I don't know, man. I feel like you should, it's gonna be really, like, in the beginning it's gonna be really confusing, but like, look at how other people do it, like Anna, Cole, this new guy that I have, Joshua Barrios, my boy Mikael. So people are kind of getting it, man. Like, you need to do it more. Like, this shit is gonna be hard, especially if you've never done any real shading before. Like, if you're just used to this fucking cartoon ass shading, it's gonna be really hard, but you just gotta do it more and more. So use a bigger brush. Don't focus on the details. Don't do the goddamn eyebrow separation when you don't even have the planes, you know what I'm saying? And please stop using, like, start using, not stop, I'm just so fucking angry now. Start using the transfer for your brush. So don't use this brush that doesn't have any transfer at all, because you don't learn any line work, right? Like, you don't really learn anything about lines. Like, you learn a lot about design. Like, this brush that doesn't have any line, like, transfer of the line is great if you're just learning design, but you have a big problem with just line weight, you know what I'm saying? So for example, you see how like, for example, Cole, like, his lines just really look like a drawing, right? Like, your lines look more like an ink, you know what I'm saying, like an ink drawing. So it's gonna be really hard for you to turn this ink drawing into a painting, because for a painting you actually need a drawing. You don't need an ink drawing, you know what I'm saying? So those lines are gonna be really useful if you just want to learn the shape of the planes, how you're doing them right now. But it's gonna be really hard for you to shade them. So try to do it with these planes, with these lines, and just get somebody's work and then just try to copy it. Like, just try to replicate what you're seeing in some of the other students or somebody online. You know what I'm saying? If it's really hard for you to do something, just find somebody who has done it and then just try to replicate it. But yeah, man, just keep going. All right, next up we got Esther. As I said, I'm so proud of Esther, man. Look at that shit. Oh my god, I can't stop looking at that, baby. I love you. I want you to be my wife. Jesus, look at that shit. So we just had a conversation this week. I kind of explained a lot about hair, and oh my god, look at that hair as well though, man. Esther is progressing hard as fuck. The only thing that I'd advise for Esther, we kind of mentioned in our talk, and I'm gonna be doing a YouTube video, but I want you to, Esther, kind of soften those cheekbones a little bit more. So I really like how you're shading them. You're really being confident. That's everything that you need to be doing. But just after you draw them like this, just go in with the smudge tool and then just soften up one side, right? Just kind of blend it in. So I'm not blending in like all of them, because then it's gonna look super soft and it's gonna look kind of ugly. But what I'm doing, and even if you soften up everything, you can kind of still, by the way, that's the magic of planes. Like when you have some planes, even if you soften it up, you can still kind of feel that structure, you know? But the real magic comes when you have the planes and you understand where to soften them and where not to soften them. So for example, in this, I'll soften up like this top one and maybe like the edge, but I will not soften like this one, right? Like I very rarely soften this part, because that kind of shows you that the mouth is coming out, you know, kind of like here. Like, I'm so glad she did like a straight edge, this with the red. So that's gonna be just purely experience. Like, you just experiment and you just like, I would advise you just maybe soften up some things, maybe soften up only the top side and be like, you know what, does that look better if I just soften up the top side, or does it look better if I just soften up the bottom side, you know? But this is everything that you need to figure out before you start adding highlights, because again, if you get caught up in the highlights and all this shit and you still don't understand how to really blend the transitions of the midtones, you're just gonna make it more complicated for yourself. So what I advise Esther to do is just experiment with really blending those midtones, and never let like a plane to be that long without really changing the edge. So any plane that's kind of long, you gotta kind of work on the edge, because otherwise if it's purely hard, it's just gonna look kind of off-putting. Like, it just doesn't look like part of the painting, you know what I'm saying? But if it's completely soft, then you lose all the structure. So the key is, again, to know where to make, you know, to make them soft, and where to kind of leave that hardness to really understand that shit. But just keep going, man. I'm so proud of this work. I just can't say that enough. I really like this one as well, even though this feels kind of like, with the nose and the thing on the forehead, feels kind of weird. But yeah, just keep going. I feel like for Esther, you can also kind of do another layer of the shadows. So that's a perfect layer for the first layer of shadows. But then you can kind of get a darker color and really like darken up that cheekbone kind of here, darken up the cheekbone in the other side, because you see how, like, for example, on the neck, you're gonna have a lot more levels of shadows. So that's a great first level. But then go in with a darker value, and then just make sure that you get the other level, right? Like the darker level of the values. So that's what you have to do before adding the highlights again, because if you don't even have the shadows developed, after you add the highlights, it's way too messy, and it just doesn't, you know, it's much better to do it first the shadows and then the highlights. So I hope that helps, man. You're doing great. Just keep going. Alright, next up we got Frankie. Frankie said only one drawing, and she said that she's been doing, she's gonna make her schedule, because she's been kind of having a lot of work, couldn't really produce that much work. And that's the key, man. If you really don't schedule out your paintings, like, your work is gonna get in the way, you know? Like, you really need to know when you're gonna be drawing. So you just gotta schedule it out. But for Frankie, I feel like her shading is getting better, like the edges are getting better. I'm so happy that she started doing these really hard edges on the nose. Like it feels a lot more structural, but I feel like you can push it even more. So Frankie, I feel like you still are doing a lot of unnecessary shading, and I actually brought up some of my older work compared to my newer work, so I can kind of talk about that. So really the thing is, and I might have mentioned that before, but it's really key. So in the beginning, you feel like the more shading that you add, the better it's gonna look. But the key, like for example, Frank in here, like she thinks that, you know, just adding like a lot more shadow, it's gonna make it a lot more realistic. But the thing is, if you don't really understand that cheekbone and you don't really have any hard edge, you just make it look worse. That's why your initial sketch are always gonna be better, because you don't really understand it that foolish. So not foolish, but fully. So when you start adding more detail, you just make it look like a circle, like a, not even a circle, but a bow. So see how that cheekbone is complete, like it doesn't have any structure, right? Because it doesn't have any hard edges, it doesn't have any planes, like it's just dark on one side and kind of light on the other. And I kind of wanted to show you that in my work as well. This is some drawing that I did, I think in 2017. So I was really focusing on kind of like doing some traditional drawing, and you can kind of see how I was trying to like shade those planes, but I really didn't understand them. So I was just doing this kind of like general shading. And then in here, it's funny because I feel like there's the same amount of detail. So I feel like in my newer work, I have the same amount of detail, but I'm showing a lot more with just my brush stroke. Like it's not even brush strokes, with my shading, right? So the key is really to force yourself to think about where you're gonna be adding a hard edge, where you're gonna be adding a soft edge, rather than just mindlessly going in with the shading. I know it feels good, you know, because you're just kind of mindlessly like, oh, I'm drawing now, and you're just making it pretty. But really the key to making it better, the same as the structure, is to really analyze it and really think about it, you know. Like in here, you can kind of clearly see how I was doing some random you know, shading. And in here, see how I was going this direction. Let me actually open it in Photoshop and kind of analyze this, because I feel like it's going to be useful. So seeing here how, first of all, I have light, like frame light coming on the edge. So first of all, I'm thinking about the shape of this rim light. So see how it's not just like one line going in this way, but see how it's actually shaped to the planes of the head. And then when it comes to the shading of the shadow, it's not just I'm shading it this direction, but I'm actually thinking about, okay, this way, this plane is gonna go in this way, this plane is gonna go this way, this plane is gonna go this way. So see how through my shading, I'm showing those planes, you know. And then you have a hard edge in here, you have a hard edge in here, but then it kind of soft in here. And then it's the same on the other side, hard edge on here, soft in here, but really hard on the edge right now. Right here. I talk way too fast, man. That's what it is. I talk way too fast. So yeah, the nose is getting a lot better, Frankie, but I feel like you can push the lips as well. Like just right here, you can kind of make a harder edge, like right where, like if you look at it really closely, like you can see how this, for example, let me show you all the hard edges with the red, and then with the blue I'm gonna show you the soft edges. So this with the red is hard edges, right? And then this with the blue is gonna be soft edges, pretty much, you know, all the other ones. So when you're drawing, you really need to be constantly analyzing how hard of an edge you're doing, right? With you, like see how, like before the overpaint, not that I even did that much, but it just completely feels like everything is soft, you know what I'm saying? So push it more, kind of how you did with the nose, just really be more confident in that brush stroke. But you're getting better, man. Just be more aware about it. And for example, right here where the cheekbone is, I would actually make it even harder. So I'd make this edge kind of harder on the cheekbone. You can kind of see clearly how it is harder, like on this side, and then it's for the other side as well. So see how this and this is gonna create kind of like a different muscle of the face. So if you actually add a hard edge in here, and I know I said that you shouldn't be doing this weird shit that actually touches the nose, and I'm still standing by that, but I'm talking about when people don't have any shading around the nose and they just add those goofy wrinkles. In here, it's totally different because the light is gonna be hitting the cheek, so this is actually a completely different plane than this one, right? So actually what's happening is that you need to show that there's a hard edge, but not because it's a wrinkle, but purely because it's a different plane. And through your hatching, like through your hatching, that sounds weird. Through your cross hatching, you can actually show that, for example, this is gonna be going this direction. And I'm kind of doing it way too harsh just so you can kind of understand it in here. But for example, I'd go in this direction, and then I might change and go in this direction, and I might change and go in this direction. That way, you're really creating like a puzzle, right? That fits into that face and shows you the different planes. If you just shade it completely soft in just one direction and you're just going in circles, it just looks completely soft and there's no planes at all. So just really think about that, you know, a hard edge on here, then you're gonna have the triangle kind of like this. So just introducing more hard edges, and really now he looks like some scarred ass motherfucker. But yeah, just think about this shit more, man. I want to see you use more hard edges on the chin as well, but really push it. It's much better for you to create some wrong ass hard edges than it is to make completely soft edges, right? So I hope that helps. Just do more. That's really the secret. All right, next up we got Josh. My boy's back. My boy's back with the color studies. Really happy Josh finally sent some work. He did this study. I really like the colors. Couple of things that I want you to be mindful of, Josh. Let me actually see what I wrote down first. Transitions, edges, and hair. Yes. So the thing is, when you're doing, like I've talked about this before, crazy colors like this, and you kind of tried, you know, for example, going from yellow to blue, you always need to add a lot of red, you know, because if you only add blue and orange, like let me show you. If you just, actually let me get some gray first. So let's say you're gonna trying to go from this blue to this orange, you know, if you just completely blend it together, you're gonna have gray in the middle, right? So what you have to do is you get that blue, actually, you get that orange, and then in the middle, when you're shading that shadow, you're using a mid-tone of the red, right? So I'm not picking any color that's, and you know, the fault is mine because I still haven't really done any color tutorials, but I swear I will soon. But you know, I'm not really picking any colors in the middle. Like if I'm picking it, it's only because I picked the red, and now I'm picking between the red and the yellow. So the further the colors are away from each other, the less you should color pick them. So if you have like the furthest one, for example, like blue, orange, green, purple, like these really opposite colors, you should never pick in between like with the color picker, because you're always gonna pick gray. So what I do instead is I really think about it. So what's gonna be between like yellow and blue, it's gonna be purple, kind of like pinkish red, actually not purple, sorry. So I pick this pinkish red, kind of like a mid-between tone, and I just lay it in, and then you can kind of color pick the between, like between the red and the yellow is gonna be orange, and then between is gonna be purple. But even see that purple is kind of like super gray, but I actually pick more of a purple, make it brighter, make it more saturated, and I'll actually play with the sliders rather than just paint with what I you know, with what I picked. So look at that difference of transitions with just actually you picking the colors from the picker, from the sliders, and just picking it from the picker. Like it's just completely different. And Joshua kind of tried to do that, but I feel like you can push it even further. So all of these transitions, for example, where the cheekbone is, even for the nose, I feel like you can introduce a lot more purplish, a lot more pinkish kind of vibes, and that happens very, very early on. So if you look at my progress, I'm sorry, I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about right now. If you look at my process, I introduced those colors very early on. So then when I keep building up the colors, it's actually gonna be showing all those transitions below them. You know, you don't introduce them afterwards, because now it's gonna look goofy if you just add this red in between. Like, it just looks like she hit her face or something. You know what I'm saying? So you need to do that before establishing all the colors. But a couple of places you can even kind of see it in the reference. It's really apparent, like right here, how her, like, around the neck, like you can clearly see how George just did some orange on top of the blue. That's why you don't really see that vibrance. So instead, just have some of that red in the transitions. Again, the cheekbones, the nose, just pretty much everywhere. And then another thing that I wanted to mention is really just the edge of core shadows. So George, your kind of edges are getting better, but you cannot leave just this big ass edge without really changing the like the transitions between the colors. So what I'd probably do in this is actually soften, like for example where the triangle is, and I'll just leave a hard edge on the other side. Because if you just leave it like this, where it's completely the same edge throughout the whole cheekbone, it just looks completely weird. It just kind of looks amateurish, you know? So let me show you how I did it in some of my other works. It's just important for you to really introduce, this is a good example. So see how in here, like for example, I have a really hard edge, but then it kind of gets soft and then it kind of gets hard again. It's pretty much what I said about Frankie as well. Even introducing like a little bit of a soft edge in between that cheekbone, it just completely makes it better. Like, see how much more professional that looks, because you're really showing that you know exactly where to add that hard edge. You're not just adding the same edge everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So that's it for the edges. And then the hair, I feel like you can kind of build it up a little bit more. Again, I feel like you can kind of add more pinkish, kind of like purplish vibes, because it's way too orange. So definitely that transitions. Like if you look at the colors in here, you can kind of clearly see how it's gonna be a lot more red, then it's gonna be a lot more orange, So definitely for Josh, man, you gotta be using more colors. You know, your structure, the proportions are looking kind of slick, but definitely more colors, and be mindful of the edges. All right, I hope that helps. Then next up, we got another Joshua who actually sends his work for the first time. I think he sent me an email as well, so let's read it real quick. Hi, so I use Procreate on the iPad, and this is my first time trying to share a PDF. Your videos have helped me a lot, and I look forward to watching more. Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you so much. So he sent kind of like this shading. I feel like it has a lot of structure, it has a lot of proportion, but one thing, Joshua, that you can definitely improve, man, is just being more confident and just using more like hard brushes, because right now I feel like you're blending with this really soft ass brush, and even though the structure and the proportions are right, it just feels kind of whack because you're not really sure of where those edges are. So definitely what I advise for Joshua is to just study more edges and really, you know, pretty much what I was just talking about. Just be mindful of where to add hard edges and where to add soft ones. So let me show you like a little overpaint of where I actually add some of those hard edges. I can't even talk today. I don't know what's happening. I think when I try to just talk really fast, something happens to my brain and I start making mistakes, and I start making even more mistakes, and I feel stupid. And yeah, so that's what happens. But I'm gonna get better though. I swear I'm gonna get better, man. That's what it's all about. You just gotta keep doing whatever the fuck you're doing. Doing live streams, you just gotta do more live streams, man. I don't give a fuck. So yeah, even adding that, like those hard edges in the cheekbone and the eyebrow, like see how much more it brings out of the whole portrait, because it just shows depth as well. Like when everything is super soft, it looks kind of flat, you know, because you don't really see things that are closer to you and things that are far away from you. So another place would be like like the nostrils of the nose, edges of the mouth. You can clearly see it in the reference as well. You just gotta pay more attention. But that's why I'll also say to do more male studies. Anna says, just relax, darling. I'm too excited, man. I just get too hyped. That's what it is, man. So yeah, what I'd advise for Joshua is to just get more male references, because when you're really working with female references, like, you don't really see that much of the edges. Like when you're working, for example, like with this one that Esther did, you can clearly see a lot more of the hard edges. So you can kind of see the difference for Joshua. See how like Esther's work is really a lot more like there's a lot more hard edges and a lot more structure, and it feels like it's just more pleasant to look at, because it's like, oh, okay, this person actually understands like what's happening in a painting. With yours, even though she looks beautiful, everything has this soft vibe, so it's just kind of blurry, you know. So that's what I advise Joshua, man. Just do some male studies and really try to focus on those edges, and then just send it to me. How much time we have? Oh shit, we got 4 minutes. All right, who else do we have? Max. Yes, Max did some sketches of the planes. He's been getting better with just the structure in general. But what I feel like Max should definitely work on, let me see what I wrote. Oh yeah, so I feel like you should work on, Max, is just the lines, just the thickness of the lines and the line work. Joshua, oh, he's actually here. Will do. I had done 2 male studies before and I wanted to try a girl. Oh, okay. You can send me the males as well, man. Like you can send me more than one work. It's cool. Like I'll just pick different things to critique from your work. Like you can send me like 4 or 5 artworks. It's totally cool. But yeah, I'm just glad you did some males as well, because the girls are definitely gonna be harder. So focus on the males in the beginning. Alright, so for Max, I feel like Max, man, your planes are great. Like the structure, like I wouldn't even have that much critique when it comes to the planes. But what I feel like you definitely need to work on is just the lines in general. Actually, this guy, his forehead needs to kind of come behind a little bit. But I want you to kind of work on those lines and really start thinking about how to make it look more like a drawing, rather than just really this analytical piece. You know, it's kind of like the advice that I gave to DJ. So if you look at the eye that you drew, see how like you clearly have this same kind of like eye with the same brush. Like it's just, I don't even know how to explain it. Let me show you. Who has some great lines? Oh yeah, with Cole. So see how Cole, like when he's working on that drawing, it feels more like a drawing. With yours, it just feels more analytical. So try to pay more attention to how you can really make it look like a line work rather than just some analytical sketch. Joshua says, yeah, definitely will send you more. Glad the structure was good. Nice to get some praise on my birthday. Oh shit, it's your birthday? Shit, happy birthday. Damn. It's actually a national holiday in Bulgaria. So that's weird. Shit, happy birthday. Yeah, so that's definitely for Max, man. I want you to kind of get more males as well, because I feel like funny enough, you're better at females. Like your males kind of look weird, especially this one. How can you make Tom Hardy, is that his name though, Tom Hardy? I'm not sure, but look how much uglier you made him. How can you do that? That motherfucker beautiful as hell. Yeah, but great structure, man. Just keep working on those lines, you know. You just need more work. That's what it is. Then we have my boy Mikael. I think he's actually here. He sent one study because we actually had a talk, and he said that this is his first time doing the smudge. Kind of like he's been trying to work more with the smudge tool, and I'm really happy, man. Like you can clearly see the improvement. I think he kind of had the same problem as Esther had, which is like too many hard edges, which is definitely better than too many soft edges. So what I advise Mikael to do is just think maybe a little bit more about the planes. I think you should definitely get a reference that has more dynamic light, because this one in particular has this really kind of soft feel, like it feels more like a female reference. That's why he's so pretty. So Mikhail, man, definitely get some, let me show you, some references with more kind of like this, like more sharp, light, like more edges and stuff, so you can really practice those different edges. Because in here, you did it great, by the way. That's an amazing piece. Even the hair is really good. So you're doing amazing. Just make sure that you're studying from references that have more difference in edges, you know. But I really like how you did the nose. The cheekbones are great. Even the mouth is good. Maybe introduce more kind of soft edges. So what I normally do for the mouth is I'll have a hard edge like right here on the edge, and I'll make it soft kind of like on the corners and stuff. So maybe you can kind of imply that. But yeah, just better references. And by the way, that's so crazy. He looks like an evil mad scientist or something. But yeah, that's an amazing study, man. So keep going. Finally, we have Sam. I kind of mentioned in the Bailey critique for what I think Sam should be doing is just introduce some 5-minute sketches. So keep doing these. I really like the structure. I feel like you're overcomplicating the nose a little bit. So the nose needs to be a little bit more simple. Like you're drawing all of this like the corner. Let me show you the way that I draw this nose. Actually, let me get the resolution a little bit higher. So the way that I draw the nose is, first of all, you have the parent bottom plane, right? Like this, and then you have the top plane. With yours, the bottom plane is a little bit higher, so it needs to kind of go lower a little bit. And then when it comes to the corner of the nose, the way that you drew it is just kind of on the side. Mikhail says, all right, better reference. Great, man. I can't wait. I swear, I just want you to get good so I can do an interview with you. That's really what it is. So with the nose, when you get that plane in here, the top one, you get the ones on the side, you're really gonna have a corner, but the corner is gonna be right here. See how it is? The way that Sam did it, it's kind of like this really long piece going in like that, and it just doesn't really make sense. So what I advise you to do is actually stay away from the corner of the nose. For now, just simplify it with a bottom plane and then the middle of the nose, like this part right here, right? So that's how you should simplify the nose. And maybe the lips need to be a little bit longer and bigger. Like I feel like they're way too small. And stay away from doing this plane, like this one right here. It doesn't really make sense. So just keep that with just the bow, and then just have another bow in here. And then I feel like the nose is a little bit too long, but that's because the mouth is a little bit too small. So if you just push that, you're gonna get kind of like more of the right proportions. So yeah, definitely keep doing these kind of like plane analysis, but make sure that you always introduce some, not always, but also introduce some 5-minute sketches, maybe like some 15-minute sketches, because I feel like right now you're spending like 2 hours on this and it's way too mechanical, but you're not really practicing like the quick sketches. So just get a timer, you know, maybe like 10 minutes, and then just send me some different ones. Like send me like a 10-minute sketch, a 15-minute sketch, and I can, you know, I can critique those as well. So this is it for today, man. Thank you for watching. Thank you for submitting your work. You know what it is. I'm gonna see you next week, man. I need to talk slower. Really need to talk fucking slower. But yeah, man, I appreciate you. Keep sending me your work. And yeah, talk to you next week, man. Bye bye.